I am going to call to order currently the meeting of the liquor commissioners, and we are convening tonight to consider issuing the liquor license for the Putney Winery. We have been issuing that license for a number of years now. John, you want to elaborate if there's any elaboration?
Yeah, this is just a renewal. They're still based in the Baskerville building. They've had permits for a couple years for tastings. They have a separate manufacturer's license that they get from the state of Vermont that does not require local consideration. I'm not aware of any complaints or any issues regarding that premises.
So is there a motion to approve the liquor license for the Putney Winery as presented?
So moved.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to approve the liquor license for the Putney Winery. Is there any further discussion? Seeing as there's no further discussion, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you very much. This is one that you each need to sign.
Okay. Sounds good.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right. See you, John. So we will adjourn the liquor commissioners meeting and call to order the select board meeting at 5:32. Karen, do you have any adjustments to the agenda?
I have none.
Okay, I just do want to add, I am just going to very quickly comment on where we are with progress on EIC as of a meeting on Monday night. And so I'll let you know what we talked about there.
I guess
so we can add that as an item E and under select board items.
John?
I want to wait till I want to get on the agenda.
Oh, hang on a minute. Just hang on a minute. So equity and inclusion is under other business.
Oh, okay, that's fine. So we don't need it. Sorry, I just missed that. Yep, that's fine.
Okay.
Okay. Now
I think Elena has something to say.
Elena, if you want to say, if you want to make a public comment on items not on the agenda, that would be in a few minutes. So, all right. So next on our agenda would be approval of minutes of March 23rd and 24th.
I'll make the motion to approve the minutes of March 23rd, 24th, 2021.
And I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of March 23rd and 24th, 2021. One thing that I wanted to comment on in the section about the discussion about equity and inclusion, particularly, actually it wasn't about equity and inclusion, it was after Fletcher made his statement. Fletcher ended his statement by pointing out a failure of leadership. And I don't think was acknowledged sufficiently in the minutes that both David and I accept responsibility for some degree of that failure of leadership. But we also, I strongly believe, and I think I pretty clearly stated, that part of the failure of leadership was the fact that what was discussed when the resolution was formed was the creation of a charge right from the get-go, and that not happened. So I just want that to be clear in the minutes that when the Equity and Inclusion Group resolution was passed and when members were appointed, there were very clear discussions that the first thing that committee was supposed to do was come up with a charge, and that didn't happen. So I just want to make sure that's in the minutes.
Do we have to make any kind of specific adjustment anywhere, or is that clear enough?
I'm fine with it being reflected in this week's minutes if that's how we want to do it, and then we don't have to. Well, we probably Alyssa's there. I'm assuming. I can't see everybody.
Yeah, I'm here. Yes.
Can you make note of after Fletcher's statement and when I started to make a statement or a response that there was an acknowledgement of failure of leadership? And the acknowledgement that that was shared amongst the 3 sitting select board members at the time, but also was clearly that, you know, there was the question of why somebody wasn't appointed from the select board. That was something that came up in Fletcher's statement. And I stated clearly that part of the initial task was to create a charge. So there was a failure of leadership from all 3 select board members. There was also a failure of leadership within the Equity and Inclusion Committee in not creating the charge that had been requested at the time of the resolution and appointment of people. So I don't know whether you want to read that back if you could, and then we could adopt amended minutes.
Yep, I can just add that and we can redo it next meeting if you want.
Okay, so why don't we table passing those minutes till next meeting? Is that sound fair to everybody?
Yeah, it seems a little too complicated to try to do that over Zoom.
Sure, that's fine. Yep.
Or go to
Also, those minutes, there was a point in which I was reading reading part of the release from the Keene Task Force for Equity and Inclusion, and it reinforced what Joss was just saying about how it took a year for them to come up with the charge for what the city council should do, and that's not reflected in the minutes either. So I know it's in the tape, but maybe that should be in there somewhere.
All right, so I'm going to propose that we table the minutes. I believe those are from the meeting on the 24th. But go ahead and can we just have a motion to approve the minutes of the special meeting for March 23rd?
Motion to approve the minutes from March 23rd, 2021.
Second. Sorry. Second.
All right. So it's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes from the meeting for March 23rd. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, good, thank you. So next on our agenda would be warrants. We have 2 warrants tonight. We have a payroll warrant and an AP warrant. David, you want to make a motion or?
Motion to approve and execute the warrants to the treasurer as presented upon completion of review.
And I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the warrants to the treasurer as presented upon completion of review. So why don't we go ahead and review them, Karen?
Thank you. So payroll warrant dated April 9th, 2021 in the amount of $19,263.62.
Are there any questions about that warrant?
No.
No? Okay. And the AP? You're all set, Eileen? Sorry.
Yeah, I'm all set. I was trying to bring it up, but I already looked at it earlier. I saw it before, so I didn't have any questions on it.
Okay, moving on. Accounts payable dated March 27th, 2021 through April 9th, 2021 in the amount of $118,844.65. In this warrant, there is a U.S. bank payment for $49,575.25. That is part of the fire station, part of the water and sewer. VLCT property and casualty insurance, $19,224.75. And then just the usual payouts that we have every month.
And the Fairfields is truck parts, right? For the highway department.
Fairfields is blades for snowplows and the grader. So there's 3 different bills in there. The grader blades were about $4,600, and then the snowplow was like $3,600, and there was a really small one for $144.
Must have been the sidewalk plow.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So What's the health equity? Is that part of the health insurance?
Health equity is a monthly charge, and that when we were with Blue Cross Blue Shield, it was all wrapped up into, we didn't have that extra payment, but with MVP, they outsource it, so we're paying like $49.50 a month. It's like an administrative fee.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Any other questions about that warrant? All right. So we have reviewed both of the warrants, and it was moved to approve and execute the warrants. So if there's no further discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Good. Thank you. So public comment on items not on the agenda. And Elena, I know you were wanting to say something.
Whoops.
You're on mute, Elena.
I wanted to speak to a response to the Atlanta shootings. It would take me about 2 minutes.
Sure. Yep.
Should I go ahead?
Yes.
Oh, okay. This is what I put. In response to the shootings at Atlanta on March 16th, I thought our community could make a statement condemning anti-Asian violence. I contacted Jamie Contois, former chair of Equity and Inclusion Committee, and Eileen Hoot of the Selectboard. Jamie sent me the letter from Burlington's APITA community, and I think it has been widely made available. Eileen offered to write a resolution for Putney and ask for a model. The city manager's office in Barry sent me a copy of Barry's resolution. Eileen has adapted it for Putney, and she has sent it to Karen. About 2% of the Vermont population is Asian. Asian American neighbors live in Putney. Asian American businesses, artists, musicians, and teachers enrich this community. They are at risk for harassment, discrimination, and violence because of their ethnicity. This is unacceptable. Women were also targeted at Atlanta. I do not have Asian heritage, but I'm a woman, and if anyone in our community is at risk, then we are all at risk. I would like to request that the Select Board adopt a resolution condemning anti-Asian hate crimes. Thank you.
Thank you, Elena.
So I did offer to basically adapt the Barry statement. I did send it to Karen. I don't know if she forwarded it on to you. It obviously didn't make it onto our agenda for today because I didn't get to it until late Tuesday, I believe. I don't think it's too controversial, speaking for myself. I don't know if you've had a chance to read the letter that Elena is talking about. It was featured on NPR as well. It basically serves as an admonishment to government agencies that never did put out a resolution at the time. And I'm not blaming anybody. I personally feel like I'm just running after these issues as they happen. They happen so frequently and so often that it's hard to keep up. But I did recognize that I thought that we should probably say something that seems obvious, I think, to all of us, in that we all, I assume, do condemn anti-Asian hate. But I guess, unfortunately, it still needs to be said. So I personally would support the Select Board putting out a resolution at some point.
I'm definitely comfortable with that. I'm also comfortable if we, whether we want to do a resolution or whether we want to, Eileen, if you want to make a motion to make a clear, either make a resolution, or for this to be a clear statement that we are all against Asian American hate crimes, as well as hate crimes of all sorts. We could do that, but if we want to wait until it's a formal resolution, I'm okay with that as well. Karen?
Can I make a comment? And so you are under public comment right now, and this was not warned on this agenda. My recommendation is that I share the resolution that Eileen put together with David and Josh, and we can put it on the agenda for the 21st. And then you can make a decision as a board.
Okay, that sounds good. And I think, I mean, it's pretty clear to me that there's consensus among this board that we agree with the sentiment involved, and we're sorry that it's not more timely if we're waiting to present it to adopt it at our next meeting. But sometimes that's the way the gears turn, and we certainly all would condemn that, and are hopeful that these types of actions are at a minimum limited, if not non-existent in our town, and that we would certainly not condone them. So
I would like to make a comment.
Sure, Eva, go ahead.
This resolution, I think any time that it comes out is the right time. It's always good when it happens in that moment, but we're in this learning and holding one accountable stage. And I would request that a copy of that resolution be sent to our one representative and our two senators.
That's a good idea.
And to the Reformer and the Commons.
All right. Okay, so thank you, Helena. And
Ms. Swift, I just had another question there.
Yeah,
is this the first resolution of this kind that's been made? Have there been other resolutions like this? I know there was something similar when the graffiti was done, but I think that was from Equity Inclusion.
Yeah.
You signed on to it. I'm just curious if this is the first sort of statement of this kind. And
now, Josh, you did the Black Lives Matter.
Yeah.
Folks, I believe there's been resolutions made before, long before the past 5 years. Resolutions have been made around issues of attacks on women and so on and so forth. This is not new.
No, sorry, we've got a lot of feedback. If people could mute themselves if they're not speaking, please. Yeah, no, I mean, we have definitely made resolutions of this type. I think my experience is that more often than not, partly because of the timeliness of wanting to make statements, that often these are just verbal statements as opposed to formal resolutions. And I mean, I think as Eileen pointed out, it's sometimes hard to stay ahead of all the bad news that we should be recognizing. And so, you know, I certainly have tried to make personal statements when we've had the opportunity in select board meetings to comment on current events that are problematic. But again, there's a lot of them, unfortunately. So. All right, so we will see that resolution and go from there at our next meeting. Are there any other public comments on items not on the agenda?
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Fairman, go ahead.
Yes, just to alert everyone, yesterday Governor Scott posted on his website proposed investment of American Recovery Plan funds, referring to about $1 billion of unrestricted funds that the legislature will be deciding how to allocate. He is proposing allocating $223.6 million to extension of broadband service, of which $23.6 million to the Deerfield Valley Communications Union District. where they say that there are 5,561 locations that would need to be upgraded to excellent internet access. So I'm just putting that out there so that everyone knows that there could be close to $24 million headed in this direction, of course, to be prorated among all the member towns, but we're one of them.
Good. Thank you for sharing that. Have you, or do you know whether somebody has done the math yet as to whether that that sounds like it would put a very significant dent in it, but I'm guessing maybe it's not quite enough. Do you have any sense of that, Mr. Fairman?
Well, Mr. Chairman, the plan says that it is intended to take care of everyone. In fact, I'm now quoting from it. The CUD would design, build, and operate a network covering all underserved, unserved addresses within 3 years of the grant start date.
Wow, excellent. Well, that's great news. I'm guessing that we would be wise to continue our due diligence with the other organizations that we've been discussing in meetings, but to also, as we've discussed, continue coordinating with the CUD and sort of trying to keep a big picture open of how we might approach this. So, but thank you.
Also,
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Fairman.
Just to add a clarification, building on what you said, there are two options. One is that the CUD builds the network, and the other is a public-private partnership.
Yeah.
So both are open and basically would need to be worked out. Now, public-private partnership might be an incumbent carrier, or it might not be.
Right. And I don't want to get too far on a tangent on this topic, but it sounded pretty clear that grant money you spoke of was going to be targeted towards the CUD, or would it also potentially be available to public-private partnerships?
Well, the answer to that, Mr. Chairman, is both are envisioned. There are two alternatives. One, the CUD builds the network. Two, there's a public-private partnership.
Right.
There's
okay.
Item 1 and 2 on a list of possibilities.
Yeah. No, and I'm aware, and we've talked about the fact that the CUD, in fact, probably would adopt some model of public-private partnership, is my understanding. Or, well, I don't know whether it would be partnership, but certainly the process would be contracting with private organizations to do the infrastructure work for a public communications district. But I don't know. But thank you. And let's
wait a second.
Yeah,
wait a second. Senator Randy Brock, if you read the Reformer and you read Vermont Digger, has come out saying we should consider the satellite. Using satellite, what is that very wealthy guy who's proposing, the one who's going to send folks into space again, that he's proposing that would be quicker and so on. I think we need to be really mindful of that, because I think that is not, as we talked about with Mike at one point, not a good idea.
Yeah, no, I think that, you know, given that this money is targeted, well, targeted might be, given that the CUD seems like it's clearly going to benefit pretty significantly from this, I think that we should ask our representatives to the CUD to keep us informed, but that we should certainly be keeping an eye on potential funding that becomes available and be supportive of that, whether it's the CUD or whether we need to address that at our own town level. But thank you for bringing that to our attention, and I'm guessing Karen will be hearing more about it soon and or following up with Mike and or Core. Good. Thank you. Okay, are there any other public comments on items not on the agenda? All right, so that would then move us on to select board items for discussion and action. So our first item is certification of compliance, town road and bridge standards adoption. This is something we do, I think it's annual, isn't it, Karen. It's certainly regularly. And basically, it's just confirming that we have agreed to keep a certain standard of maintenance of our bridges, or not even maintenance, but a certain standard of construction of bridges and roads. And so essentially, that is a sort of coordination between Brian, our highway superintendent, and the state folks to just keep an eye on things and make sure that we are in compliance and continue to be. So if there is a motion on the table to approve the certification of compliance of town road and bridge standards.
So moved. Yep.
I'll second. I just have a question though. What would happen if, for example, we didn't meet the minimum requirements and then certified that?
Right. So for example, if we took a road that wasn't up to standard, like a class 4, right? And then the town took it over, we wouldn't get money if we didn't do this every year, Eileen.
Okay.
So it's part of the state aid to highways that we get every year. And the state does require a certain standard, and for Putney, ours is a little bit better, especially like Section 5 roadway construction standards. So our thickness is just a little bit higher than what the state does recommend. Not by much, but maybe because of the terrain and the topography, you know, in Putney, they last longer. But that is the reasoning behind adopting this annually.
And is there any outside audit? Does somebody come and measure
the state? Yeah, sort of as I said, it's a coordination between Brian and the state. So essentially, you know, we submit the certification app or the adoption, and we're verifying that we are maintaining a certain standard, but there's a couple different aspects of it. You know, if there's ever a question of whether we are adhering to it, Brian can call. We can ask for an audit of any specific bridge or roadway for that purpose. We also, whenever we do new construction, we have it engineered to meet or exceed those standards. So, you know, it's sort of an all around. And the reality is that it's always a catch-up game because the standards are always changing. I mean, for example, a couple of years ago, there were new standards on drainage practices adopted. And so, you know, we are still receiving or have received and will again receive grant money related to those improvements, but we have not yet achieved those new standards in all the locations recommended. So it's always sort of a little bit of a cat and mouse game, but the idea is to stay as far ahead of it as possible. And as long as we're active and we're pursuing that and we are largely maintaining, then it's an open conversation. So.
All right, I didn't mean to hold it up, but just curious. Yeah,
no, that's fine. And as Karen alluded to, our funding, the state funding we get is largely dependent upon it. So
that's important.
We want to risk.
Okay.
So it's been moved and seconded.
Yeah.
One question: are we required to do a certain amount of improvement each year to get that funding? That cat and mouse game that you're talking about? No.
No.
Okay.
As long as we adhere to the certain standard, David, and then as long also as we make a good faith effort to come up to new standards as they are provided to us, then the state will continue to fund it. I mean, they're not looking to not fund the towns. They're looking to give a carrot to the towns to say, let's keep doing this better and better. So
I was just wondering if there was a schedule that we're given, that there's a certain number of miles of road that we need to bring up to a certain point by a certain date in order to qualify for the funding, if it was like that.
That is for a different grant. It's the grants and aid, and that's the hydrologically connected segments that we're working on every year. with Wyndham Regional Commission.
So this is separate from that.
Yes.
Got it.
Although I agree with you, Karen, but I would also say that they go hand in hand. I mean, they're as we're doing one, we're sort of doing the other. And I mean, my understanding is if we fell significantly behind on the compliance of town road and bridge standards, the state could use a stick on us instead of a carrot on us. But the idea is to try and keep it ahead.
Right.
So, but those standards are shifting steadily, and so we meet them, and then a state, yeah. Anyway, all right. So it's been moved and seconded to adopt the certificate of compliance for town road and bridge standards. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So next is our annual financial plan for the town highways adoption, and this is also something we are required to do by statute to adopt a financial plan for the highways. And Karen, if you want to just run through what we have there.
Sure. So basically the sheet in front of you, we don't have any major projects for this coming fiscal year. And if we did, they would show up on this plan. And what that does, Eileen, if we come up in the ranking, because we could be on top or we could be at the very bottom, and the state only does like so many per year. So if we're chosen, we are able to get funding for like major structure projects or bridges. Okay. So Holland Hill box culvert, I forget what the cost of that project was, but 3/4 of it was funded by the state because of this financial annual plan.
250-ish, I would say, Karen. I mean, they're big chunks of money. And the year before that was a similar box culvert out on Hickory Ridge Road. Correct. And so this is all part of sort of the same concept of always upgrading to try and be ahead of it.
And the paving too is part of this plan, Eileen. And so we have in our budget $100,000 to pave, certain sections in Putney. One year we had a $175,000 grant to do a segment of road. I think it was Westminster Road, actually. I can't remember. Anyways, but this is what this is all about. So we basically take certain numbers out of the highway budget, and this determines, where we fall. And then again, if we have projects that need funding by the state, it's right here. Otherwise, we wouldn't be getting any grant funding for any of the projects.
And do they normally match whatever we have, whatever we budget, or?
No.
We usually have to do no, they don't do match on this, but when there's grant funding, like for a culvert or a paving project, we have to do a percentage match. It's usually either 10 or 20%.
Correct.
So, and we can often do that in kind. So, we supply the trucking or whatever it is. And actually, and like with the West Road, I think a big part of our in-kind was to upgrade all the culverts in advance of doing it, so there are ways that we can make up for that grant money, and it works out really well for us. And we also, it's sort of a constant rotation of towns applying. So we apply for that state paving money as often as we realistically think we might get it. And that tends to be, several years ago, I think we got 2 in a row, which was unusual.
We did.
But we always apply when we think we're likely to get it. So, David.
How does the state determine whether you're the town that gets the funding again? I didn't quite catch that.
You're rated. So if we had one like this year, we probably wouldn't get another one for like 3 years. But the state always tells us, if you have a project, put in for it, because if somebody's not ready, you might be able to get in.
Right.
So we're looking at a structures grant maybe in fiscal year 2023.
Got it.
And then the paving, we're like 10th out of, the entire state. So.
And they're pretty good at guiding us on saying, you know, yeah, don't bother this year, but next year definitely submit it. And my sense is, David, that that equation is a little bit of a combination of compliance levels. So if we're complying well, that helps us, but also of necessity. I mean, if we have disaster, you know, they're looking to help us with our worst roads, but they're also, again, looking to use a carrot to keep us ahead. So if we're in compliance with all sorts of things, you know, this being a good example, if we didn't do this well and or have it audited, things like that, then they would say, you know, until you get this in order, you might as well not even bother apply. So
Right.
Got it. Okay.
So
finance and fairness.
Annual financial plan.
What was that, Josh?
A motion, David or Eileen, to approve the annual financial plan.
A motion to approve the annual financial plan for town highways.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the annual financial plan for town highways. Are there any further questions or comments? Thank you, Karen, for putting the work into this and making it happen. Much appreciated.
You're welcome.
And to Brian as well. I'm
Yes.
sure he plays a significant role in that. And for the one we just approved in the last conversation too. So thank you both. But so all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you. So town hall barn roof repair review recommendation.
So in your packet, there's two pictures. It was brought to my attention that there was snow inside the town hall barn where we store our redeemable bottles. So I went in there one day and I'm like looking around and I'm like going, how's that coming in? And I look up and that's what I see. So the cap on the ridge line is pretty much gone. And then some of the sheets of metal are like coming up, and I had Travis Slade take a look at it to give us an estimate. And he's like, it's a wonder they're staying on, and they have to make an amount of racket at night when it's windy, you know? So that roof is in need of repair if we're gonna save that building. And in your packet, late, I sent you a estimate for $4,674 from Travis. So basically, he'll take all the old sheeting off. He'll put straps down, and then he'll put new metal roof with a new, you know, cap on the roof line. This is under the $5,000 purchasing policy where we don't have to go out to bid. And his schedule is getting busy. I would recommend to the select board to consider this quote and to get into his schedule so it can get done this year. And I also recommend that this be paid out from the roof repair reserve.
Did Travis come and look at the wood under the roof from the inside to see if there's any more repairs that need to happen besides just strapping it?
He did not get inside because he came at a time when we weren't there yet.
Got it.
So
Just curious. The pictures aren't that clear, and you know, I just wanted to make sure he doesn't get the metal ripped off and then realize there's a lot more to it.
well, and I asked that question too, but he, you know, he said he didn't think it was going to be a problem.
Okay.
I'm not a roofer, so it's hard for me to even, when I look at the outside of it, it looks like it's all there, but apparently it's not. So, because if you can see daylight through it, you know, but.
Yeah, I mean, that picture of the daylight is really just at the ridge, and that ridge
Yes.
cap, I remember having this conversation a long time ago, and I thought we had done something about it, but apparently not. But I don't know whether, I haven't looked at it. I mean, it's possible. Travis probably would have let us know if he thought there was significant other. I mean, if it's metal roofing, David, it's likely that the sheathing is in reasonable condition. The only thing I would wonder is, can we screw down the existing metal roofing and put a new cap on it and call it good? But I don't. If he's saying that doesn't make sense, then we should probably do what we're saying.
Can we talk to him again first?
And or have a peek at it. I mean, you want to, Eileen, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm curious as to the condition of the rest of the building, and whether it's, I don't know that I actually just realized it was there the other day. So I don't know the condition of it, or how long we expect it to last.
So I talked to Travis about that, and in order to save that building, we would have to do something with the roof. And we utilize that building for storage of all the bottles. And there's a couple other small things in there, but it looks fine to me. You know, we're gonna have the door repaired too, because it's coming off the hinge on one side. But other than that, I mean, it serves its purpose, and I would rather save the building.
We have done some work on it in the past, Eileen, little bits and pieces. My overall sense, and I haven't been into it for probably 4 or 5 years, but is that it's structurally sound enough, so we should certainly save it. I'm happy if we want to conditionally approve this. I'm happy to swing down and have a peek and make sure I think it's a good idea. And if not, we can discuss it further. And the only reason I say that is because I'm a builder, I would have a reasonable ability to assess its integrity. But I'm happy to, you know, if we want to go ahead and approve this, contingent upon my having a look and saying this seems to make sense. And if I feel the need, I'll call Travis or otherwise. But does that sound?
I feel more comfortable with that.
Okay. So make a motion, somebody?
Make a motion to approve the roof repair contingent upon Josh's inspection.
Second.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded to approve the roof repair as presented in Travis Slade's bid. Is contingent upon an inspection. Is there any further questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you.
All right, I'll see you tomorrow, Josh.
Yeah, there's more than one reason I need to come down there. So if I'm not right on it, Karen, stay after me.
Hey, you have stuff in your mailbox too.
I know I do. So.
Oh yeah, that's right.
See you in the morning.
Okay, so last thing on our list is financial reports from third quarter. I have looked these over. I haven't gone in depth on them. Do you want to comment on them, Karen? I didn't see anything that surprised or shocked me.
No, I think if you review them at your leisure, I'm not terribly concerned right now. Things look in line, you know, for third quarter, you know, we're about 70%. We have a couple line items that are over budget. I looked at them, and the bottom line is, you know, we're still in good shape. General fund makes me a little nervous, but I'll be monitoring that for the next couple months. So I figure we have 5 more warrants for the year. Delinquent tax money is coming in, so that's a plus. There are a few revenue lines that we haven't collected yet, so we'll be keeping an eye on those as well. But overall, we're okay.
Good.
Yep. And we also just did third quarter billing on water and sewer. So that'll come back around. Because it looks like the water and sewer has a negative, you know, because we've spent more in operating expenses than we brought in. But we still need to collect We just billed in March and we'll bill in June again. So I'm not terribly concerned about that right now either.
Mr. Chairman?
Hang on one sec, Mr. Fairman. David?
As I was reading through this, one of the line items that's over is the electricity at the fire station. Have we figured anything about that yet? Do we have any answers?
So we're not using more usage. What it is we're out of solar credits. So the actual dollar amount on the bill is reflected by that increase. So, and Tom did have Green Mountain Power down there, and there's a few changes that they can make. They're minor, like light bulbs and timers on, lights and small things like that, but nothing major. So
I'm sure this is a conversation for another time, but I don't understand solar credits and why we would be out of them.
because we didn't produce enough solar, and we're only limited anyway, David, to a certain amount. So the wastewater treatment plant and the fire station have used all their allocated credits. So it's like 10%.
I can maybe shine a little bit of light on it, David. We opted into a solar electric purchase plan a number of years ago, where we basically agreed with a solar installer organization to purchase a certain amount of solar power generated. And so we get that amount of solar, we pay X amount per year, and they provide us with a minimum of X amount of solar per year. And so if we exceed that amount, then that's reflected on our bill. And I think we should revisit, and I'm hoping, actually, Eileen, I think this is a topic that the Energy Committee, I can't remember, most of these power purchase arrangements tended to be arranged around roughly 7-year periods before reevaluations. And so, Karen, you don't think so?
It's a 20-year contract, and I don't recall seeing anything about renegotiating in 7 years.
Okay.
And I think it was 2000 and I want to say 14.
That's what I would guess. Yeah.
We signed that.
So my question is, if we projected a certain need and we purchased a certain amount, why is that not enough anymore if we have the same amount of usage?
It was never enough. We don't have the same amount of usage. I mean, I think our usage has gone up,
Okay.
and up to the point. But the balancing act for us in the discussion as to how much to purchase was to purchase enough to be a significant offset to our usage, but not to agree to purchase so much that it might in fact be more than we needed, and then we use that. So that's a bit of a balancing act. But I'm hopeful that the Energy Committee can review that contract, see what the scoop is with it. But also, I have always thought, and until we redid the roof on the firehouse a number of years ago, but man, there's a ton of roof space on that firehouse, and we could put a lot of panels up there. And so I think the Energy Committee, it would be great if the Energy Committee were to review our overall town usage, review that contract, and review what we might be able to produce with an array on the fire station roof in order to, at a minimum, do everything we can and go from there. Eileen, yeah.
Yeah. So Karen, if you could just, I assume there's a contract hanging around in the office, unless you gave it to me in that giant folder that you gave.
No, it wasn't in
Okay.
that folder, but
Good, because I don't remember seeing it, so I didn't miss it. We have talked about possibly putting solar panels on the fire station, or actually creating some kind of parking canopy at the parking park and ride. And I may be misremembering the conversation, but Morgan Casella seemed to imply that there wasn't enough sunlight because of the trees that are on the other side between the fire station and 91. And I don't know if that's true of the roof as well, or just the parking canopy idea.
I would guess, totally anecdotal, that it would be more that would be more of an issue. I know it would be more of an issue for the parking area, but maybe
Yeah.
for the fire station, but I wouldn't think so. But Karen's got her.
We can ask. I can ask him again. That was kind of in passing. We were talking about just solar in general, solar options in general.
So Eileen, just so you know, the town owns the building.
Yeah,
The state owns the land for the park and ride.
that's what I thought.
Yeah. And, you know, they own the land that the building's sitting on, so.
You know, the other thing that might be worth, and Eileen, I'll just put this in your mind. You know, we recently approved that site down off of River Road.
Yeah.
And we have also, the town owns not a huge parcel, but a not insignificant parcel associated with the highway department. And we have talked about the possibility of putting an array down in there. So, and I can't remember whether Morgan was involved in those conversations or not, but certainly with anything that's a bigger array these days, GMP is really pushing, as we all learned in that discussion, to have it closer to a substation. So that might be a more appropriate spot. So something to think about, because there's land at the highway department that we don't need to use for the highway department. We do use some of it for stockpiling and things, but probably could be used differently. So another one to think about. But I think Mr. Fairman was trying to ask a question or make a comment.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, coming back to the third quarter financial statements, our town manager said that the general fund makes her nervous. Why?
So it makes me a little nervous, Mr. Fairman, because my report for the warrants, so this particular warrant was $33,000. And in the general fund, we have roughly $153,557 that we can expend. So if I take 33 and multiply it by 5, that's pretty close. So I'll be monitoring spending in the general fund. Although what's in the budget right now has been budgeted, but doesn't necessarily mean we need to spend it. So the next couple months, I'll be watching it closely.
And it may be obvious from what you just said, but it's not obvious to me without. Is that an income issue, or is it just a budgeting issue? I mean, are we going to be short on? Are we going to be short on cash, or are we going to be potentially over budget? Which is what's making you nervous about that?
It's going to be close, Josh.
Right.
So I think
both budget and cash wise.
Yes. So I think we're at 90%, collected revenue. So we still have some revenue to, to bring in. We're at 91%. And then overall for expenses, we are at total expenditure, we're at 80%. So, we're in range, you know, but I'm not sure how much surplus we might have. And of course, there's always adjustments at the end of the year anyway.
Right.
So, and I know some of the grant funding that we were able to obtain for COVID related expenses, that helped out too. So.
Okay.
It's tight. It's going to be tight. But the other thing is too, the unknown, it's like,
right. Yeah.
Comes in,
But as far as known is concerned, we're tight, but we're probably right in the range.
We are.
Unknowns are one question, and our knowns that are like, we don't have any more payments to the SU, for example, that would significantly shift that in a way we don't want it to.
Correct. Like all our,
Okay.
loan payments are done and.
So it's going to be sort of a monthly expenditures issue.
Right.
Okay. All right. Does that answer your question, Mr. Fairman?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Thank you to both of you.
Okay.
You're welcome.
So that would move us on to the town manager's report. Karen.
So I'll run through this quickly. Roads, Hickory Ridge, Brian and I spoke. He had a contractor look at it. We're going to be putting that out to bid soon.
For paving.
For paving, yes. Yeah.
Somebody asked me, and I don't know whether you know the answer to this. They've been working on the wire, the pole infrastructure at that corner. Are we going to shift the configuration of that corner at all? Do you know, Karen, or is that just sort of
Not that I've been told.
Okay.
Brian has not alluded to that whatsoever.
That wouldn't be a bad idea.
Widen it a little bit.
Yeah, that's a tough corner. When the school bus comes down for the grammar school to swing that corner and any other big truck, that's a tight corner. But
yeah.
So,
I can bring it to his attention and just ask.
Yeah. I mean, even
they did move the wires, but there is still a phone pole right there for the phone line, but not for the power lines. And I don't know how those two companies would work together, but they would have to move the phone line off the last existing pole that's right in the corner of that corner.
Which I would assume would be planned for, David, because they usually, as needless to say, they usually move them anyway. But if we have a paving project, I mean, even adding an extra 18 or 24 inches there would make a difference, I would think. So yeah, we should definitely bring that to Brian's attention. Not that he probably hasn't thought about it, but
already, right?
Because we could probably motivate the phone company to do their work,
right?
If we needed them to.
Yep. So that's it.
Yes, Mr. Fairman.
The phone company doesn't own the poles. Consolidated Communications sold their poles in Vermont. I don't know to whom.
Yeah, but as you probably know, maintenance of those poles and therefore the moving of poles to new or different poles is a shared responsibility. And GMP and Consolidated work that out. I don't know. But I do think it's something that if we wanted it done sooner rather than later, we could probably ask for that to happen. I don't know, but thank you for pointing that out.
So Hickory Ridge is slated for this fiscal year, and then Brian.
And you didn't specifically say, I think we all know though that you're talking about paving.
Correct, paving. Yes. For this year. For 2022, Brian also had the contractor look at Priest Drive.
Yeah.
So we had a little chat about it, and he wants to do something with that this year because he doesn't think it's gonna hold up much longer. He said it crumbled like in the last couple of years. It's crumbling quickly, and he wants to get some drainage in there, some catch basins, inverts, and at least redo that hill. So that'll be going out to bid too. So he'll have two major projects this year. That's going to be a paving project also, Josh. As far as mud season, the grader's out. Roads have been, they're all over town. I mean, it's been really difficult, and he's been chasing some roads. But I want to thank the public for calling either the town garage or my office and alerting us of sections of road that have been bad. Because Brian and his crew, they do go out every morning and drive the roads to check on them. With rain, it helps, the frost come out quicker. But having a grader or a loader in the middle of a mud hole sometimes does not do the road any justice. So the timing of repairing a muddy road is critical. And I think the guys have done a really good job. And I want to thank the public for those people who pulled people out of, sections of road that, they just got swallowed up, and it's unfortunate, but it's Vermont, So I think everybody's worked well together. And right now the roads are in pretty good shape. The grader is out, grading some roads already. Putney Mountain, Leon Wood Road, Hilo Biddy was graded this week, so they are getting out there and fixing the roads. So please be patient.
Yeah, Vanessa, go ahead.
Hey, just on the Hickory Road piece, it seemed to me there's a spot just in front of, just before Matt and Nancy, where they were putting in their poles, and there's that dip, it kind of collapsed right there. That seemed to have happened, coincided with the work and all those trucks and the traffic configurations that they had going on there. That collapse happened right off after or in conjunction with the installation of the new poles.
Okay. I'm not envisioning the one exactly that you're talking about, but that road's in tatters. I mean, typically what we do is, the highway crew will go in advance and sort of patch up stuff like that. So when it gets paved over, that's not an issue. But I'll next time I drive that way, I'll take a peek, or David will as well, and we'll let Brian know if it's an issue.
And I want to say that they did a great job on Black Locust Road. It's beautiful now. Thank you guys so much. Great job.
Perfect. Tax sale procedure is continuing. So the first initial letter went out to people. So payments are due April 16th. Right now we have outstanding $69,214.68. People have called the office and we're making arrangements, and these are people that are 2 years in arrears. So, and letters went out to people who are 1 year in arrears. And again, money is coming in, it's trickling in. So, there is an understanding. So I have to thank them, and I appreciate their effort. So
David, go ahead.
What's the total? That's the 2 years figure. What's the 1 year figure added to it? What's the total of the 2 years?
I don't have the 1 year with me, David.
I was just trying to get an idea if we were, the same average as we've been for the last couple, or if COVID had put us further out. Just trying to get a feel for that.
Karen?
Yes, Celeste, you have the number?
It's like 70,000 just for 2020.
So that's not bad at all.
Top of the 69.
Right, so 140. That's not bad.
Which is not, that's not unusual.
No, that's not a bad number, and it's.
Karen, we're only at 95. We're only out like 95,000 total right now.
For 2020 and 2019?
Yeah. And then a little bit for like the years prior to that.
Right. Yeah, because that goes back to 2011. Yeah, so we're in pretty good shape right now, even with COVID. And I think people are, they're getting stimulus money, and they're chipping away at what they owe. So I just want to say thank you for the good faith effort, because this is amazing. Because the end of February, that number was a lot higher.
It was big, yeah.
Remember, it was over $200,000.
Yeah,
we were concerned about that. I remember this time last year we were under 100.
Yeah,
but not much under 100. And
right.
So, just to make sure that I'm clear, it's 95,000 for both 19 and 20.
I'm pretty sure. I just looked at it today, and Karen, you have that. You don't have it with you?
No, I only have the tax sales stuff.
Oh.
The 2011 to 2020.
Yeah, that's the list.
Oh, hang on. Yep, you're right. So 2020 handwritten is 74,000. Is that right, Alyssa?
I think what does it actually say?
Says $94,360.87.
And that's just 2020 or that's the total?
No, that's 2020, and then 2019 is $20,859.52.
So together it's, yeah, okay.
Yeah, so together it's $69,214.68. From
What?
29.
That doesn't add up.
That doesn't add.
From 2019 back to 2011, it's $69,214.68.
With 74 from 2020 on top of it.
Well, yeah, $94,360.87.
Why don't we clarify that for our next meeting, just so we know?
Let's do that. Yeah. Yep.
Right.
We didn't get that document, did we?
No.
I don't
Okay.
think so, no.
No.
That report has a total on it at the bottom for what all years are.
Yeah, it's $128,416.23.
The whole year, for the
Right.
whole, all, yeah.
That's from 2011 forward.
114.
Really, yeah.
114.
No, 120 something.
128,
Thank you.
416.23.
Thank you so much.
Yep.
Should we throw a couple extra numbers in just to confuse things?
Yeah.
I do
Well, I guess Alyssa,
better with numbers in front of me, so I believe everybody.
so Alyssa, you'll need to explain to me why you got 74,000 on here.
Because I was trying to figure out the tax sale people, if they don't pay, that we are owed 70,000 roughly of people who are just 1 year in the rear.
Got it.
That's what I was subtracting the 2019 from the 2020 to say 70,000 worth of taxes didn't pay just this year.
Okay.
Got it.
That was just.
Yeah. According to this, summary, it's 2019 and 2020. That's, is about 115,000 just for the 2 years.
So maybe for our next meeting, we can have that on a document, just so we know exactly what we're thinking.
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay, Wi-Fi hotspots.
Wi-Fi hotspots, I got a notice, and we'll put this information on the website. It's called Project Connect. And so it's free community Wi-Fi installations. So this is for like areas that are underserved. So people can go onto this link and sign up if they want like a Wi-Fi hotspot. So it's free, and it might help some of the areas that don't get internet.
Who's paying? Who's providing this? Where's this coming from?
This is from it's Project Connect, and it's ITDRC, and I would have to look. I'd have to go on the website to get what that acronym is, because I don't have it on the sheet.
I would just be cautious. I mean, it may be free to connect, but often with hotspots, there are data costs. So people should be cautious about this. This sounds like it's right up Mr. Fairman's alley. Maybe he can look into it a little bit for us and report. But I do your homework before you sign on to something.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Fairman.
I could look into it. I have not at this point, so I can't say anything substantive other than I agree with you. There is no such thing as a free lunch.
Yeah.
So somebody's paying for it somehow. These things do not do not simply spring out of nowhere. So I'll look into it and tell you what I found out at your next regular meeting.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Howard.
It's Information Technology Disaster Resource Center. And all municipalities were sent an email from Wyndham Regional to like spread the word. So that's what I'm doing.
Interesting, okay.
So next is grant funding availability. And Mr. Fairman already mentioned the American Rescue Plan Act funding. And I was able to go online. VLCT has a class tomorrow. It's a 1-hour webinar that I'm going to be sitting in to find out more about this American Rescue Plan. Right now, for Vermont, there's like $76,550,410.71 that's allocated to the state of Vermont. In Putney, right now, the estimated allocation is $242,910.02. What I understand from the little bit of research that I did, we can use it towards infrastructure, resiliency, like economic development, for town, and education. So what I'm not understanding is, does that mean like the schools can tap into this money? Is it just for the town? Is it for nonprofits and, other organizations and libraries, So I'm hoping tomorrow I'm going to have my questions answered, because if there's $242,000, we should be thinking about how we want to use it.
Is it our swimming lessons educational?
Well, and that might be infrastructure as well. I have no idea. It's an interesting idea.
Yes, and so we're going to be looking at projects, renovations to buildings, possibly,
And I mean, you said the total number for the state was 76 million or something, but as we're hearing, the money coming into the state is a huge chunk more than that. So
right.
We need to definitely, I recognize you're doing this, Karen, and thank you, but let's just keeping an eye on all those possible resources, because we should jump right on them as they come up.
And I will be listening to for if there's more money out there, because obviously Mr. Fairman has an insight on this as well. So I appreciated that initial information. And I'll be looking at the broadband too, because, that's something else we've been talking about. So somehow we need to connect with this money. I mean, eventually, well, the bottom line is taxpayers will be, somehow paying it all back, but
as we, just one sec, Mr. Freeman, as we've talked about before, if we don't take advantage of that grant money, somebody else will.
correct.
Or we're going to pay it back one way or the other. We should try and get what we can out of it.
Oh no, I'm gonna try to latch onto it, Josh. And
yeah, definitely.
Yep.
Mr. Fairman.
Mr. Chairman, just to mention, if any of you or anyone who's listening to this meeting would like to see Governor Scott's document, there's a press release which talks about $2.7 billion, and it has a link to, let me see, it's a 13-page document which I was quoting from earlier, which gives a complete overview. It's a well-written document, so you can get it online very easily.
Good, thank you. Okay, public hearing, zoning bylaws.
Okay, so I'm just letting the select board know that you will have a public hearing on April 21st at 5:15 for zoning amendments that are proposed by the Planning Commission. They already had their public hearing, so now part of the process is that the select board will approve the amendments, and I put it in the paper already. So the legal notice has been posted, and the information was emailed to you tonight.
Oh, it was. I was just going to say, if you could email it. Not in our packet. It was emailed separately.
It was emailed separately, yes.
I haven't seen it. Okay, good. Thank
And
you.
it's on the website as well.
Okay. All right. So are you all set with your town manager's report?
Yeah, mowing bids are due next week, April 14th, and landscaping bids. And I'll have those ready for you on the 21st as well.
Sounds
That's
good.
it.
Thank you. Okay, so we will move on to other business. Putney Public Pool fundraiser.
So we just want to update you with the fundraising and how it's going. And we have brought in, Alyssa, do you want to announce the number? Because you've been following this.
We have brought in over $48,000.
Wow.
Wow.
Excellent.
So I want to thank the community for the donations thus far. It's very overwhelming, and we did have one donation of $20,000 last week.
Great.
So we still have a little ways to go, but we're going to continue, and I'm also going to look into grants from USDA, although they told me I had to get a loan, but there are a couple grants for recreation that we might be able to tap into to get some more money for the repair of the pool. I also want to let the board know that I did reach out to a resident in town who is an auto body person, and he will be working with David. They're going to go assess the pool. As you know, our pool contractor is booked until 2022. So in the immediate time frame here, we might just be able to patch, but we still are going to probably have to repair and replace the fiberglass in the pool.
So, yeah, well, that's it. You got it. I don't need to say anymore.
Well, that's a huge number. Thank you, everybody. I'm impressed. That's great. I especially since, from my perspective, this has been a relatively quiet process. I mean, you know, we have spoken about it some here and sent out a letter, but we haven't gone out and made a whole lot of noise. So I'm impressed that that much money has come in with that method, and I think we should hopefully continue that momentum and figure out if and when we need to start making some noise, let's do it. So good. But thank you, Karen and Alyssa. I know both of you have worked to put that together and get the information out. So thank you. Okay.
One more comment about the pool.
Please.
I'd like the board to consider establishing a pool committee, or we restructure the recreational league. I have no history about the rec league. All I know is that the town pays them each month. For the past year, they haven't been paid because we aren't able to have sports. So it's school sports at Putney Central School. So like every fall, there's a soccer tournament at Landmark, and the rec department coordinates all that. They coordinate the baseball and the soccer and the basketball, and most of it's done at school. So I need to get my head around how this rec league works. They are actually a registered corporation with the state of Vermont, and they have a board, and they're all listed here. There's 2 people that we actually pay that are listed on this board. So I'm not sure how it works, Josh. Do you recall?
You know, I've been pretty peripheral to it throughout. I mean, I've watched it in action over the years for my kids and other kids, etc. But I haven't been involved enough to fully understand it. Maybe what we could do, Karen, is invite the chair of that board or somebody who might represent that board, one or two people, to perhaps our next meeting or a meeting shortly thereafter, to just sort of give us a little bit of an explanation of how it functions.
Sure. So I'm going to reach out to Michael Barrett,
Yeah,
who is no longer.
I'm not sure Mike's around. He might be,
No.
but I'm not sure.
I have his email though, and I know he's not in the area.
Yeah.
And then Val Harlow was another person that was on the initial board. Like,
Is Ellen Wood on it still? Ellen Wood, she used to be on it. I know she was.
no.
I know Cheryl Struthers was on for a number of years. You know who I think might be, I mean, I think Matt Bristol, who's the PE teacher,
He's on it now.
He is. It might be worth touching base with Matt and just checking in with him to see who's active and who might be. He might be the best person to enlighten us. But if he's not, he would probably be able to tell us who is.
All right. Well, let me do some more homework on this, but perhaps the rec league coordinates, with the pool and the sports.
Can I ask a question? It used to be that the rec league handled sports at Putney Central until 5th grade or 6th grade, and then the school had sports teams. I know I coached one of them and helped coach another. And so 7th and 8th grade, and sometimes 6th graders were invited up to do it that way. Is that the way it's still structured? This is just.
Well, there hasn't been any sports for the past year or so. So because of COVID. So they may be thinking about restructuring other things. I know they've been recently, we've gotten some invitations to join teams at BAMS actually. So I don't know if Putney School's even thinking of doing anything there locally.
I know it's been a big issue for the last several years finding coaches who were willing and able. And I'm not sure, and I don't know the answer to your question either, David. My recollection is that the rec league was supportive by sort of, they did their food fundraisers and things at soccer tournaments, and I don't think that was limited to the younger ages, but I might be misremembering. But again, Matt would be, that may also be related to funding. I mean, there may be funding for teams from grades, through the state education fund. There may be funding. I don't know.
I'll have to look into it.
Yeah, let's ask somebody who knows.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Fairman.
I was going to make a comment regarding the pool fundraiser, but just then my connection went down. Would it be permissible for us to return briefly so I could do this?
We're actually still there. Yes, please do.
Okay. Our town manager shared with me Vermont League of Cities and Towns General Counsel's opinion that donations to the Putney Pool Revitalization Fundraiser are tax-deductible charitable donations. The fundraising appeal does not say so, but the Town of Putney website and iPutney could. Deductibility is an incentive. VLCT's General Counsel also advised our town manager that these donations are to the general fund unless the donor duly notes on the payment that it is for the pool revitalization fundraiser. Such notation, however, is impossible via credit or debit card. I therefore take the liberty of suggesting that you move and pass a resolution designating all donations in response to the pool revitalization fundraiser to be solely for the purposes of repairing, maintaining, and/or enhancing the Putney Pool, and instructing our town treasurer to issue to every donor a valid charitable donation receipt as specified by the Town of Putney's external auditor. Soliciting donations to the town of Putney to fund such projects is an excellent idea now and always. Getting it right the first time is essential to public approval and participation. Thank you.
Thank you. Those are very good and valid points. I was wondering about the deductibility also. We hadn't talked about it, but yeah, Alyssa, go ahead.
So everybody returns a form that states that their donation is for the pool fundraiser, or they put it in the memo line as we requested them to. Also, when they pay online with a credit card, they pay through the pool fundraiser form. Therefore, it is designated as pool fundraising only and not general fund. And so far, everybody other than what came in yesterday and today has received a receipt for their donations.
Good, thank you.
Thank you.
Well done, Alyssa.
Yeah, we should, Karen, I don't know what thought you and or Alyssa have given to the sort of naming of that fund and whether we need to specifically designate it. But if you want to, I don't think we should consider passing a resolution right now. But if at our next meeting you had some clarity on what that fund would want to be named and what its intent would be, I'd be happy to have that on the agenda.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Fairman.
I am looking at the letter and I'm looking at the pool revitalization fundraiser form. On neither is deductibility mentioned in any manner, that is using that word or any other words. And the question of the general fund, this is an opinion of legal counsel, and with all due respect, I would tend to favor that opinion over the opinion of one of our excellent staff members.
Yeah, no, I'm not suggesting. I'm thinking what I would like is for our staff members to look at that legal opinion and sort of formulate a resolution for us so that we're doing it based on the legal recommendations. And I'm not second guessing your information or its sources. I'm just, until we have it in front of us and until they have it in front of them, I'm not sure that we want to come up with a resolution. But I think we clearly should for obvious reasons. So meeting.
In that regard, Mr. Chairman, I apologize if I somehow implied that you should pass a resolution right now, because I would not presume to do so.
Yeah, no, I think you said pass a resolution, and I think you're right. We should do that, and let's do our due diligence and do it when we're ready. But thank you for bringing it up because it's important. All right, you all set, Karen?
I am.
So I'm going to just give a brief update on equity and inclusion. We had, I met with some members of the previous Equity and Inclusion Committee on Monday night, as long as some members of the public. And I think I felt like we had a good sort of open conversation about where we might be headed going forward. As I have said in these meetings in the past, I am a fan of the idea of having an equity and inclusion committee that's a town committee that's very specifically tasked for the issues that need to be addressed by the town and the municipality. And I'm also really encouraging people to take this on as a more public group activity. And I think there's room for both. And I hope that, and we had some conversation about that. The intent is still to appoint, it was brought up that calling it a task force is probably not a great name because of its sort of militaristic nature. And I think that's true, hadn't occurred to me. But I think that I would like to name perhaps an equity and inclusion short-term subcommittee that would be looking specifically at coming up with a charge and coming up with, I think, sort of a broader view of how equity and inclusion in the town of Putney could be looked at. Swift Everdy has agreed to be in that small group. I have played some phone tag with Mark Thurman. I'm hoping he's going to be in that smaller group. I see he just joined, but and I have reached out to a couple other people who I think would be good members if they are willing, but I have not had the opportunity to have more in-depth conversations. But what we talked about is hopefully having a series of meetings in the next 6 to 8 weeks kind of thing, and really sort of focused on those questions. And I'm hopeful that I will have had I know one of those conversations I'm going to be able to have in the next couple of days, and I think I'm going to be able to have both of them, but I'm hopeful that Swift and Mark and I can work together to figure out a time next week that we can have sort of a first meeting, somewhat of an organizational meeting to say, what are the tasks and how are we going to break it up? And I know that a couple people, Mr. Fairman included, have expressed an interest in being involved. And I'm hoping that Mr. Fairman perhaps, instead of necessarily being on this subcommittee, but might be willing to be tasked with doing research for us if we ask him to, because I find his research to be tremendously helpful. And we have another, actually Barra also is not able to be on a committee at this time, but is very interested in doing research and has already been doing research about what other towns, particularly, she's been focused on Keene, but I also spoke more with Mary Gannon about this, and she gave me a list of names, including a couple folks who have been working on it up in Hartford, and I'm sure this overlaps with some of the work that Laura did early on, and I know Eileen has been involved with the town group in Brattleboro that's sort of specifically focused on municipal work, so I'm hoping Eileen might be able to. So essentially what I'm saying is I would like to appoint a group of 4, maybe 5 people, but I haven't yet had the opportunity to have some of the conversations I need to have. So I'm hopeful that in the interim, we, Swift, Mark, myself, and at least a couple other people can meet next week to start thinking about this. And then I think I would like to come back to the select board at our next meeting with names of folks who would in fact be appointed at that time. Swift, does that sound like a sort of reasonable summary of what we talked about?
Yeah, it's moving forward. Let's just centering the work and chugging along. Yeah. No, and again, I think that one question that came up in our meeting on Monday was, well, what should previous committee members and or others sort of be doing and focusing on in the meantime? And I guess my feeling about that is there are a ton of resources out there. I mean, that group is obviously more than welcome to meet and gather and think about things, but I really would like to encourage there to be a broader effort of the townspeople of Putney. And I was, the sort of name that came to me was a Putney Equity and Inclusion Collaborative, but really to try and reach out to a broader group within the town to do some of the more activist work that really needs to be done, but does not really make sense to fall under select board purview. So, but Swift, I will be, with David and Eileen's approval, I will be in touch. Why don't we touch base in the next couple of days, Swift, and try and figure out a time. My sense is that Mark might be the busiest of all of us. So maybe we can sort of focus around Mark's schedule to allow him to dictate a little bit when he's available, and then we can try and organize around that if that
works for Mark.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I know we refer to Keene and we know that Brattleboro is working on this. I wonder about Westminster or Bellows Falls or Dummerston, if we get any ideas from their committees.
I think we can, Eva. I think that you know, some of these bigger towns have been more aggressive isn't the right word. You know, they've allocated more funding to it. They've been able to be much more proactive in ways that I think is hard for some of the smaller towns. And I think that as time goes by, we should be looking at all of those examples. And I agree with you; those are big towns that I named, but they have done some things. I mean, I've reviewed some of the information from the Keene process and some from the Brattleboro. I'm mostly just looking for towns who have been doing good work and seem to be looking at a system that really might be sort of sustainable over a long term of the relationship between the people on the committee and the town and what the specific charges are, et cetera. So, but again,
I was curious because we have such an overlap with Westminster and Dummerston. I just wonder what their committees are doing, if you happen to know.
I'm not even aware that Fletcher, do you, I thought I saw Fletcher here earlier. Does Westminster have a committee, Fletcher? Do you know?
No, they don't.
Okay. I'm not aware of one in Dummerston either.
No.
But I may just not be aware. So, but another thing that we've spoken quite a bit about, Eva, is involving ourselves in a more regional effort and what that might look like. So, you know, as we are able to make progress here in Putney, I think we could certainly encourage others to participate either with us or encourage them to form similar committees that we can collaborate with.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Fairman.
I feel I should question one thing that has been said here, because the any committee that you as a select board create and appoint is itself a public body under the Vermont Open Meeting Law. Now, you are talking about, if I understand correctly, that you are establishing some sort of body which it's not clear just exactly what its status is, and you are suggesting that you will pick the members. Now, and in fact, you have mentioned a number of people whom you would like to have on the committee. Now, as this committee is doing is this whatever you call it, this subcommittee, a task force, whatever, is doing the public's business, I feel that in the spirit of how Vermont towns are governed, that members of the public should have the opportunity to volunteer to serve. Now, they might or might not be selected, but I feel that it should not be limited to people whom you happen to, and with no disrespect, but that it should not be limited to people whom you happen to think of.
Yeah, no, I hear you, and others have asked about that as well. I think that the idea is that this is a very short-term thing, and that it's a small and therefore sort of agile group. Definitely open to open meeting law, obviously. I guess I don't, since we're not officially appointing people yet, I'm not sure. I don't know. It's a good question, Mr. Fairman. I'll have to ponder that. I'm not trying to skirt around things. I'm trying to keep this moving in a way with a group of people who I think might be good at it, and some of whom are already on a committee and or have been involved in a committee and want to keep moving ahead. I see Swift is raising her hand.
No, I'm not raising my hand. My partner was talking to me.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
then not to put too fine a point on it, by naming the people that you choose to put on this body, you are ipso facto excluding anyone else who might wish to participate. In other words, you are doing it by executive fiat, and I would challenge that.
I guess I'm not. I think the select board has the ability to appoint any. I'm not looking to appoint anybody without select board approval. And I think the select board has the ability to appoint members to the committees at will, but I might be wrong. And if you're challenging it, then I'm guessing maybe I am wrong, because you may be more studied on it than I am. But I'm also not looking to exclude others. I am looking to have a sort of focus group who is trying to achieve a certain task. If others want to be involved, then it's subject to open meeting. So of course they would be involved. But Eileen?
Yeah, I don't think that there's any problem with us going with people who have already expressed an interest in the committee, and making sure that those people, in our view, are going to work together as a team and come up with a strategy that we as select board members want. I don't see a problem with that. Also, given the dearth of volunteers in general, I'm glad that people are even stepping up to do this small thing. Well, it's not small, but I'm in perfect agreement with you. I think we're in a good spot to get the committee going, not necessarily today, but to move forward with the people that you identified.
I was just going to ask, what is the, how do we go forward when there are a greater number of people interested than the amount of people that you want to put on the committee? Because I know that there are more people than you're looking at. How is there a formal way that that's done? And then I have another question I can ask after.
Well, I mean, again, my sense is, and I need to be corrected. I will try and research it and make sure. But the select board can appoint at will. I mean, we are not required to appoint everybody who is interested in something. We are required, if it's a public committee, to subject it to open meeting law, which we would certainly do. But I'm just because people are interested does not mean they get appointed to a committee. So I think the whole idea of this from my end is to keep it to a small group who can stay focused and do pointed work, not to exclude others, but that there's a task that needs to be completed, and let's stay on task. Swift, go ahead.
I was just going to say the piece on how we're doing that with open meeting law. So those meetings will be open to the public, because I have gotten that question from some people.
If it's an appointed committee, they will have to be open to the public. I mean, historically, how things like this have passed and have not passed, but have been done in the past. I mean, this is a topic in which people are much more interested, and many more people are stepping forward. When we have had, for example, the Affordable Housing Committee, the Public Safety Committee, the Energy Committee, the public is all welcome. Virtually nobody shows up to those meetings. So this is a bit of a different animal. So we're going to have to figure out, yes, it will be subject to open meeting law, and we will have to post appropriately, keep notes, etc. I would ask that people sort of honor the request that the goal of this is to do some pointed and concise work, and that if we can do that in a way that's helpful and then come forward to present it in a way that I'm hoping is going to provide for a larger structure to be more inclusive of more, that would be great. And maybe inclusive was the wrong word there. I just, we have spent so much time in the last year and a half debating process and steps and who's going to be where and how it's going to work, and we need to get the work done. So let's look at that. Ellen.
Hi, I just want to just kind of underscore what Eileen said at the last meeting, which I thought was excellent points about people who are passionate about this issue can get really involved at a very granular level by volunteering to existing committees and boards. And that is where the change is going to happen. I mean, there's a lot of talk about equity and inclusion, and I'm not hearing about what will actually get done. But if you sit on an affordable housing committee, you are where the rubber hits the road, and you can make very direct change for more inclusive policy. So I just want to encourage people to get involved at that level. And then the last thing I want to say is I've sat through several of these select board meetings, and I am just so proud of the select board members and Karen and other staff people that do this hard work. I really appreciate the time and effort that you put in. So thank you as a tax-paying citizen of Putney.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And same to those members of all those committees you referred to who do that work as well. It takes a village. It really does. Mr. Fairman, I think, Karen, go ahead. And then I think Mr. Fairman was trying to say something else.
Right. So I just wanted to have the board acknowledge the emails that were sent previously. One was from Julia Forsythe, and you have Howard Fairman's request to join the task force. And then Michelle Alexoff also had an email. So if the board could just acknowledge that they received those emails, I would appreciate it.
Yes, certainly. Though I knew that Michelle was interested because that was part of our conversation the other night. I didn't know that Julie's name has come up in a couple different circumstances. I didn't know she was specifically potentially interested, but Mr. Fairman, his name had been brought to my attention by you, I think, Karen.
Right.
Again, I'm not looking to exclude people from this process. I'm looking, I don't know. I mean, this will be a select board decision. So I'm looking to communicate with people that I think might be helpful for very specific reasons. And if they're interested, great. If they're not, we'll keep moving. And those who are interested are welcome to submit their names. Again, that does not guarantee appointment to any committee. So, Mr. Fairman, did you want to comment further?
No, thanks, Mr. Chairman. There seems to have been a misunderstanding there.
Okay, thank you.
So can I say something, Josh?
Yes, please.
What I read from the minutes in Keene and how the Keene committee was formed was exactly what we're doing, I believe, and that anybody is invited to come forward. And that in Keene, anybody who wanted to volunteer came forward to the city council. Those names were then given to the mayor of Keene, and then they hand selected the people who they felt best fit the task that they were putting forward for that committee. So I feel like what we're doing is exactly that. So,
Eileen.
Yeah, I just want to reiterate that Brattleboro does some intensive interviews of all the candidates of all the boards that they appoint before they appoint people, and there are people who put out their names that don't get appointed.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a question for us about that interview process and how we, I mean, again, as has been highlighted in this meeting already a couple times, historically, there's been such a dearth of candidates for things that interviews are all but irrelevant because we're glad to have anybody come through the door. So this is a different arena for us. So we'll try and figure that out. But I also want to remind people, it is not my assumption by any stretch of the imagination that this group of people is going to be an equity and inclusion committee for the town of Putney for an extended period of time. This is a group of people who are coming together to look at doing some shorter, more concise work, and then if it is the agreement of that group and then therefore forwarded a proposal to the select board to continue to have a specifically tasked equity and inclusion committee, then we would open that up to applications from people who are interested in that as well. So this is just a step in the process. It's not a final thing. And, you know, I will also remind people, you know, this isn't going to be going anywhere. We're going to be doing this work for all of our lifetimes. And so, you know, there's plenty of opportunity to be involved, and the more people involved, the better. We just, from my perspective, need to be very clear about what's the town's work and what is the community's work, and try and be very proactive and forward thinking in how we approach that and how we as a town promote that.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Fairman.
I now do have a comment because of something that was said subsequently. The city of Keene is not really germane, first because it is under the laws of another state, but also a Vermont city, say the city of Montpelier or the city of Rutland, is also not germane because they are governed by a city council, which is sovereign. We are a Vermont town meeting town. We are governed by town meeting, which is sovereign, and you, as our select board, run the town between town meetings. So it's a completely different completely different form of government.
Yes, thank you. I agree, definitely. No, and I think that Eva's point of looking at smaller towns, I think the number of smaller towns we can look at are very limited. I know that Putney has sort of been highlighted in this because we are one of the relatively small number of small towns who have taken this on, and particularly who took it on early. And I think that what I'm looking for is not the exact model of governance from these other places, but basic sort of overviews of what has worked well for them and what hasn't worked well for them, and or just for ideas to be able to say, oh, this is how they're doing it. No, of course we can't do it that way because that's not our type of government, but boy, that's a good idea. Let's figure out how we can do this. So I think it's really more for sort of informational purposes than for trying to structure specifically a model exactly like it. But thank you for pointing that out. All right. Does anybody have anything else?
I'm good.
Sorry, what was that?
I said I'm good.
Okay, good. All right. I don't believe, Karen, that we need an executive session, do we?
We do not.
Okay, good. Well, that would leave us with announcing that our next meeting date will be 2 weeks from tonight, April 21st at 5:30 p.m.
Hang on.
Well, we're going to meet at 5:15, right? I mean,
Yeah.
we have a public hearing.
Yep, your
Great.
public informational meeting is at 5:15.
Yep.
Regular meeting at
and you've already sent us on the documentation on that we'll need.
Yes.
And that will be a separate meeting from our select board meeting. So,
correct.
All right, good. Thank you for bringing that up. And in the meantime, I will be communicating with Swift and Mark, and I know Mark proposed in the chat a specific time, so I'm going to follow up with Swift on that. And when we have that time, we will post it. This is not officially appointed committee yet, but clearly there's a need to have it be available to others who are interested in the discussion. So we will try and figure out how to make that happen. And if there's nothing else, then I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you all very much and have a good night, and we'll see you soon.